Well, it's martini time again. How quickly time flies. So let's ask our frog prince to dive into the unconscious and come up with a treasure, an insight, something fun to look at. And last night we talked about the Last Supper and the Eucharist, the ritual, as a metaphor. And so I want to continue with that. And before I do, did you ever see my Pride and Joy? It's backwards. It's my business card. My uncle gave me that. That was the Martini priest who ordained me as a Martini priest. And you see, when you become a priest, there is a transmission. That's what ordination is, you know. There's a transmission of energy. There's a transmission of knowledge. There's a transmission of joy. So I got this transmission of energy when I was ordained as a Martini priest by my uncle, and he gave me his 500 Martini glass collections, and then he left. He died, and I became the Martini priest. But the Martini priest is a metaphor. What is a metaphor? A metaphor is ironic. A metaphor means this is pride and joy, this is not pride and joy. So that it contains two contradictory, opposite frames of reference that are mutually dependent. So when I say, do you want to see my pride and joy? Well, immediately the mind says he's going to show me his kid or his truck or his dog, and I'm going to have to smile and say, oh, what a beautiful child, you see. So I don't, even if it's ugly, of course, Kramer and Seinfeld said, oh, look, it's an ugly kid, But so we know we're going to smile and say, oh, it's looking great, But anyway, so we have an expectation that the pride and joy is going to be something personal to that person. And then when we see it, there is and I know that I do this all the time. So when they see it, there is a empty space. The mind goes totally empty, and then it realizes it's a real literal pride and joy. Instead of a kid, it's a literal pride and joy. And this is like a lightning strike, no, this is like thunder. Lightning burns out the atmosphere and creates a vacuum, and the air rushing in creates thunder. And a metaphor, when it's properly executed, creates, or irony, burns out the expectation, and there's a moment of emptiness, and then the two opposites come together in laughter. And that's the thunder. Very few people, most people laugh when they see that. So that's kind of like a basic metaphor is irony. We laugh at irony. Comics use metaphor and irony all the time. But thinking of the lightning burning out the expectation that it was going to be a kid was burnt out, and the relief from the tension is released, and laughter through laughter. Laughter releases tension. Tension is painful. When two opposite ideas are in conflict, or two ideas that have a different frame of reference, so they're contradictory, are mutually locked in a relationship that's painful, because the commandment of the universe is let there be one. God is second to none. Truth is second to none. So second to none. You know, America first, second to none. You know, this whole idea of second to none is a universal commandment of reality. There are not two realities, there's only one. And we have to find the one. So the metaphor splits reality into two contradictory halves, and that creates a tension because we got to get to number one. But we can't because it's split. So we transcend the contradiction through laughter through a metaphor or a joke. Jokes are metaphors. People love to tell jokes. Why? Because they create laughter. Why? Because they relieve the tension of two contradictory expectations. Okay? So I was talking about so getting back to this, the Martini priest and the Martini as the Eucharist. See? It's a metaphor. It is a martini, but it's not a martini. So, and I create that myself. I mean, that's not something that you go out and find, you know, oh, that's a metaphor. No, that's my metaphor. So that's my living metaphor. I created it, and I use it because what I'm offering, is a metaphorical way of looking at reality. And a metaphorical way of looking at reality can give you joy and relieve you from the tension of reality and the mind that the mind is divided into conflicting ideas or forces, which is called stress. So laughter relieves stress. And a metaphor creates a release from the tension of contradiction and contradicting expectations. For instance, if somebody says, or if you're a child and your mother says, try to be spontaneous. Well, you see, you can't do that because if you try, you're not spontaneous. So that puts you in a yin-yang. Be spontaneous, try. You see. Try to let go. You can't try to let go because trying to let go holds on to what you're trying to let go of. Christianity creates a cone or a double bind. It says, love God with all your heart. Well, you can't try to love. You can't obey that commandment. You can pretend to love. That's a hypocrite. But you can't try to love because love is spontaneous. So trying to love is like trying to be spontaneous. You can't do it. So it creates a tension. Okay, so what relieves the tension? What relieves the tension of the commandment that you cannot obey? There are many false ways to relieve the tension. So let's get back to the Eucharist. The Eucharist is a metaphor, a ritual metaphor that relieves the tension of the impossible commandment of you must love God, or you must love your fellow man. Try to love your neighbor. You can't do it. You can pretend, you can put on a smiley face, you can repress the fact that you don't love your neighbor, you can deny the fact that you don't love your neighbor, but all of that is hypocritical. All of that is false. Because you can't try to love your neighbor if you don't love your neighbor. So loving is spontaneous. So how do we get the love to break out spontaneously like the laughter in the Pride and Joy card? You see, now that was spontaneous laughter. If you laughed, I don't know. But most people, you know, when they see that card, there's a spontaneous laughter. That's what a joke is. The joke evokes spontaneous laughter. And laughter is release of tension. And the egoic mind is a tense mind because it's always in conflict with expectations. The ego mind is an expectation that life is going to somehow work out, but it never does. So it's always in conflict with reality. I expected it to be this way, but it isn't. That's a tension. So how do we release that tension? So the Christianity is based, the Catholic Christianity anyway, is based on this one Eucharistic ritual. And in the Catholic Church, I mean, that is the center. The whole thing revolves around that. And it's alchemy. Alchemy was the science of the Middle Ages. Alchemy takes base metal, some stuff, and transmutes it into gold. MacGyver is an alchemist. You know the MacGyver show? He takes some base stuff. Take this right here. That's a gong, right? So MacGyver's in a fix, and he needs a lever. So he grabs this and he uses it as a lever. So that's alchemy in the sense that it turns this, it transmutes this into something that'll get him out of a fix, which is gold. So it could be, he uses anything. So he has an integrative mind that is able to turn anything into what he needs to get out of a fix. So that's, in a way, that's what alchemy is. Alchemy takes something base, like lead. It's all metaphorical. It takes something base that you got no use for, or it has one use, and you transmute it into something else. So, what is the alchemy of the Last Supper? Well, he takes bread and wine, which is the base metal, and he transmutes it into salvation, which is laughter. So he takes the laughter of liberation. So he takes the base metal of wine and bread, you see, and contains it in the metaphor of the ritual. Now the ritual in the Catholic Church, before they flipped it, was like alchemy, because the priest had his back to the congregation, and he was doing something with this bread and this water, and then he turns around with this magical stuff, and he serves it to the congregation, and they all come down and they take it, you see. So this is a magical feast, but it's metaphorical in that it's not bread and wine. It was bread and wine, but now it's transmuted into something, into some power. Into power that heals you of the split or the tension of the ego mind. Now this is the way it's supposed to work, but it got watered down quite a bit, and in Protestantism it's more or less of a symbolic ritual where it is in remembrance of something that happened in the past. So there's no magic there, and you can tell because people just line up like prisoners in a bread line and go get their meal and sit down. There's no joy. Nobody's changed. There's no transmutation of the participant, you see. There's no awakening or anything. It's just a ritual, and it's fine. I'm not, finding fault. I'm just saying that it's been referenced to a historical past. So they changed the reference. So when the Catholics turned the priest around, Joseph Campbell said they turned it into a cook show. So the priest stands there kind of like he's making some bread, you see. There's no mystery. So you take the mystery out. So what is the mystery? Well, the mystery is not logical, first of all. So a metaphor is mysterious. The metaphor says, the metaphor says this is Irish Spring and this is not Irish Spring. Or this is a martini and this is not a martini. In the metaphor, if you choose one or the other, you're wrong. Getting back to this, if you say it's just a bottle of Pride and Joy, you're wrong. If you say it to your kid that you're proud of, you're wrong. Which is it? Well, you can't put them together. But when you see that you can't put them together, that seeing that no matter what you do, cannot put the two opposites together, something mysterious and miraculous happens. You laugh if it's a joke. If it's the Eucharist, you are awakened to the living Christ within, which is whole. Christ means whole, right? Not split into two. So the Christ comes to heal and restore, you see, not civilization, you can interpret it that way, but he comes to restore your own egoic mind that is divided by expectations. But it doesn't put the two together like, yeah. It allows you to transcend the two opposites as a single idea that includes both. So the laughter includes both the pride and joy as the bottle and the two bottles and the children. The laughter releases the tension of the incompatible opposites that cannot be put together. So you see, the commandment is let there be one. Well, the one is in the action. The one is in the laughter. You see, the laughter makes you whole. So the one is not an idea, because all ideas are this or that. Ideas are not. There's no single idea that explains everything. Because if you have a single idea, you still have, well, there's not that idea. You see, an idea, this is an idea and it has boundaries. You see, this idea is not everything. This idea is just one thing. So you say that one thing is everything, but then there's also not that idea. If you have an idea, you also have not the idea. That's two, you see. So there is no single idea that explains everything. With approximation to it, you see. But the transmutation is a transcendental leap to an action, not an idea, an action that heals the split. And the action comes from the body. The body is not an idea. The body is one. You only have one body, and it's now. This is it. You're feeling it. You're looking at me. You're listening. That's one. But you may be thinking having ideas that are two or many. So you look at the mind then is all fragmented into all these different ideas and thoughts, while the body is one. So we want to get to the body. So that's what the joke does, you see, because the body laughs. You see, the mind isn't laughing, the body's laughing. In laughter, the body and the mind are one. So the metaphor, the joke, the Eucharist, heals the body and the mind. It makes it one. And that oneness can be what we call enlightenment or awakening or a mystical experience which comes and goes. Once you have one of these, you never forget it because it is transformative. It is so real that you want to be that again. And so that starts your spiritual journey on the hunt for the unicorn or the hunt for the unity, the hunt for the healing of the body and the mind, you see. So I hope this has helped us understand. I know I'm constantly rediscovering the meaning of metaphor. Joseph Campbell spent his whole life trying to explain it and understand it because it's not logical. So a metaphor they're dead metaphors like, that have been created and are used in literature. Your pride and joy is a dead metaphor in the sense that when I say, this is my pride and joy, what's different about this, that it takes that dead metaphor and makes it living. A dead metaphor is, you want to see my pride and joy? And then I show you a picture of my kid. That's a dead metaphor because it's an expectation that's fulfilled, and it's just pride and joy means my kid. But this metaphor takes that dead metaphor and makes it living, so you laugh. Then laughter is spontaneous. It's an eruption. Laughter is a spontaneous eruption. Of what? Of healing. And healing is when the body and the mind become one. Not two, one, you see. So let that be our martini for the day. And come visit in the morning when we'll have Zen Live at 8 o'clock. And we'll see what we can explore in our landfill tomorrow.